Today, I'm going to show you AIP Dynamic Scheduling, which allows you to deploy schedules according to unique constraints. With AIP, you can create and adjust these constraints with natural language, no code required. AIP will give you dynamic visibility into how your schedules stack up against these constraints, so you can easily make adjustments in the app, even writing back to your external systems. Let's dive in. Here we are in the AIP Dynamic Scheduling app in the AIP Now product showcase. So you can see the different screenshots here. This is what it looks like to use the application, as well as an overview for the different features and functions, and then some different integration possibilities. Pretty slick. Then we get down to implementation details. You can see the data sets, the pipeline, the ontology objects, the LLM-backed functions, even the application. This is important because there can be a lot of variation and customization based on what you need. We're going to walk through the foundations today so you can understand how the app actually works. All right, let's take a look at it. This is a notional example of the dynamic scheduling app for a grocery store. So if I'm running my grocery store, I need to assign work to my employees according to the resources and constraints about how I want to run my business. AIP is going to help me do this dynamically and automatically, giving me the flexibility to update the rules, perform things like schedule changes on one day that impact the schedule for the rest of the week, and see what that looks like. So you can see here, I have these different task tiles. So I've got a shopping cart attendant task, and I'm going to give that to Eve up here. So we'll drag that up here. And so it's reevaluating the rules for Eve's schedule to make sure that these are following the constraints that I have. Okay, so this had a rule violation. That's what the little red dot is. Each task should have no more than 30 minutes between them. Okay, we don't want Eve with this big long break with nothing to do. So we're going to extend that task back. It's going to reevaluate the rules, make sure it's in compliance with how I want to run my business. All right, there we go. It's pretty slick. Okay, so how do these rules get there and how do they work? So you can see there's 5 different categories: deadline, duration, gap, overlap, and sequence. These are the ways that the constraints might apply to my resources, okay? You can see these are in natural language. That's pretty slick. We'll get into how that works in a minute, but first I want to show you a new tool called Workflow Builder. This is like an X-ray into your business process and how your application work in real time. All right, let's dive into that for a second. All right, this is Workflow Builder. So you can see here, actually, this is a live application on the right. So you can see this, if I drag it around, I can actually interact with the application just as I was showing in the demo before. Now, what's actually happening here is when I click on these things, we can see that this pane, for example, uses the resources and schedules and the save schedule action. That's pretty slick. So as I move around the actual application, I can understand what resources it's actually using. So on the rules engine, I have the rule metadata along with these 3 different actions. Even when I click on a button, here, new. Oh, that's the create constraint button. That's pretty slick. So as I go around here, I can find out and understand what's actually happening. So similarly with the data component, so I actually can preview the data for the constraint object or for the schedule object. That's pretty slick. So now I can understand how these workflows are actually happening, what data is involved, even when I come back to action. So if we click on the create constraint one, I can see an action log. Oh, well, I actually created a action that was creating a new constraint. That's pretty slick. But actually, let's go over and add a new schedule. So if I come over here, I can actually see the data that's associated with the schedule. Now, if I click open, I'm actually going to open this one, and I can upload my own CSV here. So there we go. We're going to upload my own CSV. We're going to replace it and validate. I come back over to Workflow Builder, and it's going to process it through, and now they'll be live in my application. All right, let's get back to the actual application. Back to our dynamic scheduling app. So just as we saw that I uploaded a CSV, it could have been a PDF, a spreadsheet, formal data sources, integrated with another system. Whatever it is, we can integrate it. So before we start evaluating my own schedule here, I want us to go back to the rules because we're going to show what the create button does. So we showed this in Workflow Builder. This was actually a create a constraint. So if I do this, I'm going to put in some raw text here. So this is no one should work a shopping cart attendant job for longer than 60 minutes at a time. So we hit submit. This is actually going to be submitted to AIP logic, so an LLM-backed function. This will interpret the intent of what I'm trying to go do, build a rule for me, and also categorize it in the right bucket here. All right, there our rule is. All right, so we take a look at it, we click on it and hit debug. We can actually see behind the scenes a little bit. So the LLM took my text was, interpreted it, created a JSON rule for it, then also had a type of duration, so it understood which bucket it should be in here for us. Very cool. So let's go apply that. So if we look at our schedule now, it's going to reevaluate all the rules. And you can see right here, this shopping cart attendant, I've got a rule violation. All right, so Let's see this. We've got a couple violations because it's supposed to be within 30 minutes as well. So let's move it back, see if that clears it up. All right, we are now in compliance. So you can see here, I'm taking very manual updates to try to optimize my schedule and see what I can come up with that works best. You might want to have more automated or optimized scheduling, lots of different customizations, all the way to text alerts for scheduling changes. So I can make these changes to my schedule, orchestrate them with my external system. So you can see here, I've got a change log. So all these change logs I can go through, and when I hit review and actually go confirm these, I could write it back to Workday or Kronos or SAP, or even back to just Excel. This is connecting AIP with the rest of your organization, empowering non-technical users. Today, we saw how you can use AIP Dynamic Scheduling to easily configure your schedules with minimal technical experience. We're able to adjust constraints using natural language and have full visibility into where we're bumping up against those constraints as we make adjustments to our schedule. But this is just the beginning of what you can do with AIP Dynamic Scheduling. If you want to learn more, request the workflow on our AIP Now product showcase and you get started. Until next time.